Welcome, everybody, to episode 7 of the Big Ben and Friends podcast. I am Big Ben Ortmanns, and getting this episode recorded so far has been a complete fucking disaster. And this week, we're going to be getting to know one of my friends and students from the pro wrestling business. This man is the first student that's ever enrolled into the Crossbody Pro Wrestling Academy. He's came into our facility as a scared, overweight kid who was very unsure of himself, and he's blossomed into this very fierce, fearless man who now radiates with confidence as well as compassion and leadership towards whatever locker room that he's in. His passion and his drive in this business is matched by very few. He has become someone that the younger generation can sincerely look up to, which is impressive for the small amount of time that he's actually been doing this. He's the longest reigning crossbody pro wrestling heavyweight champion ever. That includes the reign that he's on, as well as dates period, because he's currently on his second reign as well. He's also the longest reigning crossbody pro wrestling tag team champion in history, as one half of the Riot Makers with Mark Wheeler, now known as the Golden Gun. And he's done a whole bunch of things for a bunch of different companies, and I'm sure that some of those things may come up, but for now, don't really give a shit because it is my podcast, and I'm going to introduce him however the hell I want to. He's genuinely one of my favorite human beings and the closest thing that I have to a son. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my friend, Big Scary Holden Albright. How the hell are you doing for the third time, sir?
I do believe this intro went better than the one like 10 minutes ago, so I think we're on a good roll. Let's not jinx it.
Nothing ever even happened 10 minutes ago. We're just joking because we make jokes because we're entertainers and that's what we do. So first things. So how are you, man? Other than obviously just going through a bit of a stressful time just getting this done.
I'm doing all right. To be honest, between yesterday and today, I hit a little slump mentally where I just go, okay, everybody in the world hates me. And I just have to be like, no, they don't. Let me smoke a bowl of weed and take a nap.
You'd be amazed at what that can do to a human being. And obviously it's clearly helped. So I'm glad to hear that. Before we even move forward, we didn't plan this, but I just want to point out the fact that we're both supporting some very good brothers right now. Aiden Prince, who is pretty much the backbone of this podcast that nobody might not even know about. He does like all my graphic work and he does like a whole bunch of stuff for me. He's been absolutely incredible. He even actually participated. A lot of people may not even know this. He actually participated in my. I wanted to test an episode out. So he was actually a part of my pilot podcast that I've obviously not released and I'm not going to, but it was just like something that I wanted to try out and see how long the process took and the whole shebang. So I'm actually looking forward to getting him on here, but back on here to do like a real talk and a real interview because Princey's become one of my best buddies. I'm rocking my Danhausen shirt because I love me some Danhausen. And after seeing some bullshit on Twitter today, I just kind of felt like if anybody needed some love, it's our buddy because some muscle-headed dummy, and I don't even know who he is, decided that he wanted to be a stupid prick, and he hurt my friend's feelings. So fuck that guy, you know. I usually start these podcasts off by asking what's in your cup, but I'm a water guy right now. I
was going to be a water jug guy, but I wanted to honor your show. So vodka and orange juice. I think it's called a screwdriver.
Ooh, okay. So I'm not going to lie. I may have had a proper 12 mule right before the show started. So I just didn't want to like drink during the podcast because I was a little scared that I might get a little bit too loose-lipped because I know you too well and I get scared when I'm drinking and I'm talking to my friends. So I don't like
I'm happy that first episode isn't going to air.
What first episode? Don't even know what you're talking about.
I said some
right?
things without saying some things, if you know what I mean.
I know. I may know what you mean. This man was definitely trying to put my my editing skills to the test. And hey, you know what? We're just starting, so who the hell knows how this is going to go? But I do have to start by asking the first question that I ask everybody else during every podcast here is, it's a bit of a different story for us, obviously. But do you remember how and why we became friends in the first place? But obviously we do, so I'll let you tell your side of the story here.
we became friends because of the coach-student relationship. But I was helping out at shows between training at Squared Circle and starting at Crossbody. And one of the shows I went to was Conflict, not Crossfire, because you and Justin had that miscommunication before. And it was the Four Corners fans bring the weapons, they're on a pole match, and I just explicitly remember you calling the spot before the show started. I don't need these weapons. These are my weapons.
Yeah, I do remember that we actually talked about this yesterday, and I didn't remember meeting you at the show. But then all of a sudden, I was just driving today, and for some reason, it oddly clicked in. I actually just for some reason remember shaking your hand at least and meeting you that day. But I also remember that was a oddly absurd thing that I said, and. But at the time, you have to keep in mind that like MMA was still kind of becoming a thing in wrestling, and that type of striking was also kind of just being introduced into pro wrestling around that time, at least if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 2014.
Yeah, so I was really trying to focus heavy on the style of striking that I genuinely learned from like Team Tompkins and the Adrenaline Training Center out in London, because I was really lucky enough to have some like coaches that are literal world-class athletes and fighters, and like people that the odd person has heard of. Like it was pretty heartwarming to hear how many different messages I got from random people when we dropped the Chris Hordesky episode, and people were just like, oh my God, what's he been up to? Like, I used to love the Polish Hammer when he was fighting. And it's just kind of neat because it's like, but weird at the same time. Cause it's like, do any of my friends like genuinely not know me? Like, do they not know like where I actually came from? But that's also, they probably don't, which is also one of the reasons why I wanted to start doing this podcast, was to get to know my friends a little bit better. Right. But yeah, our obviously our relationship started as a student teacher relationship. And as I'd mentioned before in the introduction, you were the first student that ever actually enrolled into the Crossbody Pro Wrestling Academy when we started at our first facility inside the Fear the Fighter Academy, which was an MMA gym. And that's how our gym got started, was they asked us to be a part of what they were doing. So we ended up renting a ring from
Conflict.
It's too confusing. We ended up renting the Conflict ring for the first little bit, and then once he didn't really like what our arrangement, I guess we already knew that he didn't like it, so we kind of saved and we built our own ring and all that other good stuff. But that's a different story for a different time. But I guess I have to ask you, just because you're the student and you're the one that experienced all that stuff. So what was your experience like as the first student that our school ever actually got to train and really ever fully produced?
So the crossbody training school now, it's so fucking nice and clean and professional. And then there was that rec room one in between that was like a CrossFit gym and just had everything. But that first gym, I fucking loved it. I love wrestling schools being in a car wash if it's in Hamilton, or a fucking garage. Like, I love that because I'm like, yeah, this is wrestling.
The first ever Adrenaline Training Center used to be a car garage, and to me, it like they're on to their fourth facility now, and to this day, it will always be my favorite facility, just because of that Rocky style grungy ass like train. Oh my God, I don't know what it is, but I fucking loved it. But yeah, that first facility definitely had.
There's that one random light that if we had to take a photo in the ring, because like we did Thanksgiving, like big guy training, me, you, Tid, and Rage, and we needed to like go to the one part of the ring that had that weird light on it.
Yeah, because it was very weird how the lights were in there, and like it wasn't like spotlighted center in the ring, and nor was it supposed to be. But yeah, I just remember we had to go to like a certain corner in order to take photos in that place, just because it was some dingy shit. But yeah,
I
so like
it. I loved it. I lost a pair of shoes there also.
I don't think
when we moved gyms. Yeah, they're gone. They were nice shoes too. It was in between gyms. I just didn't change my shoes after training. I was like, oh, I'll get that on Tuesday, and we were out of there on Monday.
I'm pretty sure that building is like abandoned now because like I drive by it every odd time, and yeah, there is nothing going on in there, which
That
sucks
Tim
because
Hortons, there's the Tim Hortons at the corner there. That was the first time I've ever seen like what looked like bloody clothing and a crack pipe left in the washroom. And I'm from Brampton.
yeah, that was definitely the area where that would have happened. It wasn't. You can say it was a bit of a sketchy area where we were at, but we've evolved
It was
into.
our sketchy area. It was
It
our
was.
sketchy area.
It was, and it was weird. Like, I mean, I know that the MMA guys and the kickboxing and jiu-jitsu guys like fucking hated us because we made a lot of noise and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
mean, but those feelings were definitely one-sided because I remember us loving them being there because like we would watch what they do and get to kind of use their equipment and like all that other good stuff. It was fucking great. But I guess for anybody who's wondering, I mean, just because again, like you were kind of like one of our day one guys for the most part, you know what I mean? So like you've seen the what the Crossbody Pro Wrestling Academy has been from the start to where it's at now. So like what was the training like for you, and like how I guess how would you explain your experience there?
I I never went into wrestling with a goal of I'm going to be the best wrestler in the world, and I knew I was going to have to work harder than everyone else just to be average. So it's just like every day learning something new. I'm like, oh, cool. My flip bumps suck, but at least I can do this neck bridge and I can do rolls. And then it's just slowly, but it was fun exercise. I grew up playing soccer. I was working out. I lost a shit ton of weight before I got into wrestling, and it was just like I worked out, but I also ended up drinking and went to a pub all the time and gained a little bit of the weight back, and then doing rolls, bumping, hitting the ropes. I'm just like, huh. And like, I'm getting a little flabby right now because every time I wrestle, I go 110% that I'm getting a cardio workout. I don't get blown up, but I use my strength and every part of my muscles going, whereas I don't have that. And even if gyms were open, I'd be like, I'm only in the gym because of wrestling, and not having wrestling, just like, that's why I'm going to work out with you this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, we're gonna do a bit of a fun little outdoor workout this weekend, just because I mean, it's for anybody listening. I mean, because I genuinely do I like to get into training stuff anyway, talking about that kind of stuff on the podcast. But when you train outside, what a lot of people may not know, if you're just kind of an average guy, like into fitness or newbie into fitness, what the sunlight does is it releases natural endorphins in your body. And what endorphins do is it's almost like a natural like fucking energy drink, you know what I mean? Like it's basically if you're at your peak and like it just brings that adrenaline out in you. It'd be the best way I can explain it for because I'm stupid and I don't really know the scientific terms for it, but that's one of the best ways to train. It's very draining, but if you fuel your body correctly, then you can actually get out there and you can produce results a lot quicker than you can if you're working out indoors, for example. Just because at the same time too, for us, it's going to really help if wrestling ends up coming back, like even in the next couple of months, just because when you're outside and you're pushing yourself and you're doing your cardio, especially when there's so much like that heat, and it forces your lungs and your body to work at a completely different capacity. So when you get indoors and all of a sudden you get to work out in this nice, like kind of breezy type atmosphere, it genuinely makes the workout and it makes everything else that you're doing just come across a whole lot easier. Because if you put yourself in the worst conditions to train in, then game time is just it's just a breeze, right?
Well, I remember you bringing up at one point going for runs like on the pavement around your block or whatever. It's hard as shit. And because the terrain might be slightly different, it's like when I was getting ready for my Ironman match, and I still kind of do it, I would go on the stairs for 45 minutes at least to an hour and 10. I would just watch something and go.
Mm-hmm.
Running on streets sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good way to put it. The thing is though, is that it produces a different type of cardio, you know, like there's cardio and conditioning.
Yeah.
Like I will always say that, like if you want to improve your cardio, like running on the treadmill is fantastic. Like if you're looking to burn some calories and like, that's what you want to do. And like, you're not attempting to do, you know, genuinely athletic things. Like if you don't have to be in a ring and wrestle for 20 minutes, if all you're doing throughout the course of the day is like, I'm going to use like Stacy from the band the Hawkeyes, for example, just because he's our buddy. He's a drummer, and he's asked me to work out with him and to help him out before all this pandemic stuff went down, because I used to be a drummer as well, and I understand what, you know, building conditioning and the work that goes into it is truly like. And, you know, somebody like him, he would need to be out there pounding pavement. He would need to be out there, you know, doing a whole bunch of different stuff, like probably a bunch of drills that I'll show you, but like just explosive stuff with your feet, you know, like different in and out drills, like just different footwork drills, like different ways to gas your lungs, different ways to use your feet and whatnot, is something that I would do for Stacy, just because that's what he does. Like he's using his energy at all times. Like drumming takes a whole lot out of you cardiovascular wise, you know what I mean? So that's how you would have to train somebody like that. If you're a wrestler, for example, like you have to work with a whole lot of push and pull, and you need to learn how to literally be able to spring off those legs. Will a treadmill help? Yeah, it'll help you burn calories to look better. Will it improve your in-ring cardio? Not in the fucking slightest. And I genuinely mean that. Like I've done that. I've been able to get myself where I've been able to run an hour straight on a treadmill, and then I go into like a few days afterwards where like everything is like regenerated. I'm good to go. My cardiovascular is still good. But then I get in the ring and I do like one of the blow-up drills with one of my kids, and I'm done. Like just toast. Like, because everything, like it's just so different into a lot of sports specific is kind of what I'm trying to go with here. Is like wrestling is very sports specific, but in regards to running outside, 100%, not only is that going to help your in-ring cardio, but like just for the average human being, it's going to help you burn a lot more calories. It's going to build muscle in your legs. It's going to build muscle in your ass. If you run with a good posture, it's going to help your lower back out. There's just so many more different advantages that you'll actually get to doing that, because it's real work, you know? I know that's a long-winded kind of a answer on just pounding pavement, but I love that stuff.
But that's also something anyone can do. That's something anyone can do. That's great advice.
And you don't need a gym membership. You just need a pair of goddamn shoes and a pair of headphones and some music, and just go get lost. Like that's literally my best advice for everybody. Like somebody told me, and I won't say who, somebody told me that they were just wanting to start to get their cardio up, and they were wanting to start running and whatnot. And they're just like, I want to eventually work my way up to 5K. And I was just like, then just do 5K. That's like, just get it out of your system. You have to accomplish 5K from day one. And I don't care if you run for the first kilometer, jog for the second kilometer, and walk the last 3. Get it completed, because you know what's going to happen the second time? You're probably going to be able to run a minute longer. You're going to probably be able to run jog a minute longer, which is going to take time off of that walk time, which means your second attempt is going to be shorter and shorter. And then it just gets shorter and shorter and shorter. Eventually you find yourself beating your last goal. Too many people in regards to fitness and just life in general, they set goals that are way too hard to reach and forget to set realistic ones along the way to keep yourself satisfied and hungry and motivated. You know what I mean? If you accomplish those little things right from day one, just getting through 5K, what an accomplishment, especially if you've never done that before. You should be able to do that in about an hour if you just even jog and run and do whatever you can and walk it. Like, at least there's apps on your phone that you can download. The Nike Run app, for example. If you get that, like, you can listen to your music and whatever. And all you got to do is just hit start, and it'll track your distance. It'll track where you're going. It'll track everything. It'll tell you how many kilometers you've ran and how much time. And then you just compare yourself on a daily basis. If you can get better every day and you just chip away at it every day, that is what inspires people genuinely to keep going and to keep crushing goals and to try new things and to actually, get from here to here. Like, because again, like if you don't accomplish those little things right from the get-go, and like you just want to immediately get to that first giant leap, you're going to be real disappointed and probably end up quitting a whole lot faster than the average person would,
Absolutely.
So just while we're on the topic here, what are you doing for, like, are you doing anything for training right now? Like absolutely anything at all?
So kind of, but I work in basically a warehouse, so I'm lifting things that are between 5 pounds to 200 pounds. And sometimes there's some small packages where they're literally weights coming down because people are trying to ship them and receive them right now. And
Yeah.
I started in the past month though. I bought a resistance band, and it's probably one level harder than I should have got. So at least I've been kind of doing that, because I'm seeing all these creator wrestlers of me, and they all look super jacked and shit. I'm like, fuck, I gotta work out hard so I can look like my creator wrestler.
Speaking of creator wrestlers, and speaking of your dope fucking shirt, Aiden Prince, prowrestlingtees.com/Aiden Prince. Have you seen the one that he's dropped to you today? Because he finally got his internet working. And he finally got all this stuff up, and he actually went in and he redid you even better, because I'm not going to put anybody on blast or anything, because what they did was so good. But Princey's that guy where if he sees somebody else put one out of you, he's just like, shit, is mine not that good? And he just like went in and did extra work to you. And I was like, oh my God, man. Like, so now you've got these two dope creator wrestlers. It's so cool.
The best part is, and I was talking to Fuerza about this because he was designing new gear, and I was like, I think I'm going to have like that OG Rusev in NXT, how he had like the leather, like weird kind of skirt thing. Yeah. I was like, I think I might get that. But everyone keeps putting these Ludwig Borga style straps on me, and no one on the indies no one in wrestling is wearing shit like that right now. And I'm like, fuck, I think that's the next singlet I'm getting because of all these creator wrestlers. It looks good. So I need to make sure my tits and my shoulders look good.
And it gives you another reason to heart punch motherfuckers.
I think maybe it's a headbutt heart punch. That's the new thing.
But whatever. A heart strike is a heart strike, which is an ode to Uncle Ludwig Borga. So I could
cheers
not.
To that.
Oh my God! So much cheers to Uncle Ludwig. Blah-blah. So how does your training, because I'm kind of in the same boat where, like, I mean, I own a fucking gym. I own gym equipment, and I'm not even allowed to get in there and use said equipment. Now, thankfully, they're being very good with us, but I'm stuck just like everybody else. Like, I don't have access to a gym. Like, that's why I pound a whole lot of pavement, and I do as many push-ups and like just different things as I can. Like, I've got my Basruten kickboxing guy literally right beside me here. See, this camera view makes it look like I got a really cool living room, but you've been in my living room, and you know damn well that if I even budge this a smidgen, it's just a complete shit show. So, but yeah, like you're kind of just forced to do your own thing workout wise. And like, but the thing is that you got to challenge yourself. Like, I got some of those, the stretchy bands as well. I design workouts for myself, like, cause I've been able to figure out different ways to get like, different, to isolate different muscles, in ways that I genuinely, that I'm used to doing, with my regular training routine, but with these bands. So I've seeing that I've been able to find different ways to kind of accomplish sort of the same stuff, I just create different workouts and like just write them on my little whiteboard, which I'm going to teach you all about this weekend. And then you kind of create your own little thing. And like, and when it's there and it's in front of you, and for anybody that's wondering what we're talking about, if you're looking to kind of keep yourself accountable, I couldn't possibly recommend getting a whiteboard and putting it anywhere that is visible in your house at any point in time, especially right now, because there's nothing more disappointing than putting something out and writing something down and knowing that it's an attainable goal and knowing that you were literally just either too lazy or you had an excuse or you're like, oh, I'm too sore, or I'm too this, or my heart's been too broken by my significant other or Tinder date or whatever. Like we all have different excuses and all that different stuff, right? But when you have to stare at it in the face and you're just like, it becomes accountability. And not only does it become accountability, when you attain those things, all of a sudden you start to realize like, oh shit, that actually wasn't as hard as I thought. I needed to see that to get through it, and I got through it, and that wasn't so bad. And then once you start to realize that, you start to figure out how you can add different things. And again, like there's a bit of a war board process that I was kind of lucky enough to learn from my old roommate and one of my best friends, MMA fighter. His name is Jesse the Ghost Gross. And to kind of give you like a small example, like he, for his training camps, what he would do is he would write out like the dates. Like he would grab the calendar. So like, let's just say, for example, like today is the 2nd of July. So let's just say today was Monday, for example. So his would be like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, blah, blah, blah. And then he would do all of that stuff and he would just write out the date, but just the numbers. And he would do so he would give himself enough room to make circles around the numbers and stuff like that. Right. And then what he would do is he would create different, like he kind of created like a color chart legend for what he would do for his training camps. So he would have a different color if he went for a run that day. He would have a different color if he did boxing, if he did kickboxing, if he did jujitsu, if he did wrestling, if he did weights, if he did strength and conditioning, if he whatever he did physically, he had a different color chart for. So then what he would do is like that first circle was obviously the most important one. And then it would have like a cross going through it. And then either like a second cross going through it. Because traditionally you don't do more than 3 workouts throughout the course of a day. So realistically, if you've got a circle and you got enough room for 2 crosses, then that tells you what you've done. So not only is that keep you accountable, but then if you're like, especially if you're like, let's just say 4 weeks into an 8-week training camp, you know what I mean? He can genuinely go back and he can say, I'm feeling super great or I'm feeling super tired. Now I can go back and I can look at what I've been doing. Okay, maybe I should scale back on this. So then that way I can be here tomorrow. And then you can just kind of see exactly how your body reacts to different things. So again, not only does it keep you accountable, but it keeps track of what you're doing, but also kind of shows you and kind of keeps you in tune with how your body genuinely feels with and how it reacts to different things. So you can essentially, without even getting like a crazy Fitbit or like one of these cool Whoops or whatever, you can almost feel and find out how your body works to different training and different diets and all that stuff by just keeping accountability and having it in front of you, right?
I'm very much the person that I would write a lot, but never look back on it. So it wasn't until it was January this year, I think, when I had like a week and a half off of shows. And I knew I wrestled a lot, but it wasn't until I decided at like 11 p.m. or midnight, I was like, I'm going to do a Twitter retrospective thread on my whole year. And it was like, I went back through my dates and I looked, I was like, oh, January, what matches did I have in January? Oh, this. Do I have video of it? Let me put up a clip of my favorite match of that month or highlights of different people I wrestled. Because at the start of last year, I did a seminar with Justin Sane, Jimbo Jones, and Solo Ali. We went to the Pro Wrestling T School because Ultimo Dragon was doing a seminar. So we go to Chicago, we enjoy some deep dish pizza. We come back, and it wasn't until a month later, I was still in the mode of, if you're young for wrestling, you need to go to the States. You need to drive there. And like, I was doing that for the past 4 years. And I'm not a dude that you look at, you're like, oh, I need to book him. But then if you see me, you're like, oh, fuck, I'm not as, not flamboyant, but as eccentric as I look when I wrestle. So when
Mhm.
you just look at me at face value, you're like, oh, it's just another big dude. And so it wasn't until February I was watching a Destiny show. I was with Shane Saber, and I tried to count like the top 10 guys in Ontario, and I just said, fuck the states. I want to be a top 10 guy in Ontario by the end of the year. And it was just this conscience. I'm not going to drive anywhere. I'm just going to focus here. And I never told anyone that besides letting my work ethic speak for it and Shane Saber, really. And it
Mhm.
was literally just wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. And then near the end of the year, it got to the point where I started by wrestling Josh and Elgin at Crossbody. And then at the end of the year, I'm wrestling younger guys in the Autobahn, or I'm wrestling Jordan James and Ridley at Barry. And it was like, oh, I get to show them stuff I got taught. And it wasn't until reflecting back that I saw so many people in wrestling have faith in me that they wanted to lead me in the right way and show me how to do stuff, some cheat codes in the best way possible. And it was like, oh, I now get to, even though I've only been in this for 6 years, there's people that have been in this for 6 months. I know way more than they do. Let me show them. But I can also talk to someone like a Quan Chang that's been wrestling for over 20 years. And I could wrestle him and I could learn stuff from him, also get his feedback on my matches, where that's a name no one would think Holden Albright would bring up. But I ask everyone, if you're brand new and your first matches that night, or if you've been around for 20 years, I want your opinion right there.
Well, it's good to get different opinions from everybody, like across the board, whether they're new, whether they're like been in it for 6 years, whether they've been in it for 10, whatever. Because the thing is different perspective. You want as many different perspectives as possible, because the thing is like the biggest lesson that you genuinely learn over the course of time, it's like the older you get and the more years you put into this, you start to realize that there's no right way to do this. There's no one right way. There's so many different right ways, and there's so many different things that can draw different reactions, because, where somebody might say like, oh, that was wrong, you shouldn't have done that. Somebody else might say, God damn, that was different. That was cool as shit, man. Like, you should do more of that. And then you kind of find yourself stuck, and you're just like, they're both right. So how do you appease both? Well, I mean, you just kind of, you figure out what works
Mm-hmm.
best for you, because at the end of the day,
Yep.
you've got these two different opinions, and they're both technically correct, where one might be like, fuck, maybe you shouldn't do that, because that old school perspective, like, fuck, like, I don't know, maybe from a psychology standpoint, or whatever the reason may be, they may have a genuinely good point, like maybe you shouldn't do this. But then again, there's this other guy who's got this genuinely great reason as to why you should. So now you've got these two correct things technically,
Uh-huh.
right? What works best for you, because
Yep.
that is what is correct for you. You're not ever going to make everybody happy, right? But it's very, very possible to take just literal chunks of everything, in my opinion. And I've said this before, like on the podcast, but I'll say it until I'm in the dirt. Pro wrestling is beautiful just because it's a variety show, and
Uh-huh.
there's so many different things that belong in pro wrestling now. Like, it's not, you don't need just to have the big man versus like the little guy squash matches and like whatever. There's just like, there's so much different wrestling out there that I don't even know about. And that's
Yeah.
me being completely honest. That's not even me being a smart ass. Like, there's so much wrestling out there. Like, I've talked wrestling with Speedball, and he's told me about some of the stuff that goes on in DDT, and I'm like, who the fucking, what are you talking
Yep.
about? But you see the joy and like the passion like come out of his face and just out of his heart, and he's just like, oh my God, like, you have to see this. So like, whatever the hell it is that he's talking about is something that I guarantee you that a traditionalist would probably find weird and would say, don't ever do that. But then
Yeah.
it makes people happy. And that's the thing, is like, you've got to figure out, in my opinion, personally, if you can figure out a great way to combine all these different things to make yourself happy and know that you're making whatever audience that you want to make happy, then you're doing the best thing for you. And what everybody else's opinions kind of moot at that point, you know? I can use Danhausen as an example. The amount of people who probably shit on him right now is hilarious. But you can't deny the fact that, like, as different as Danhausen is, like, he's one of those guys where, like, his in-ring work is probably about the 14th or 15th thing that would even come up if you're thinking about Danhausen. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I'm not saying that he's a bad wrestler, but, like, there's just his everything is different. You're just like, oh, he does this and he does this and his character is this. And, oh, did you see him tweet with Effie? And, like, did you see his match with, or his stuff that he does with Warhorse? And it's like, all that stuff comes secondary. You know what I mean? And, like, while all these people are probably shitting on him, he's super happy and he's making a whole lot of other people happy as well. Right?
Like, I love the fact that you can be a Danhausen fan, you can be a Warhorse fan, you can be an RJ City fan, you can be an Effie fan, and not be a fan of professional wrestling. Because you just enjoy them as online characters. And Danhausen and Warhorse have a little special place for me because I saw throughout my wrestling career their evolution. I saw Danhausen when he was in Superkick, and he wasn't Danhausen. He was far from it. But then he tried a little bit of stuff, and people were like, "Oh, that's kind of like Finn Balor," where it's like no one would ever compare Danhausen to Finn Balor now. And then Warhorse was Jake Parnell, and then a turnbuckle ripped off his face, and then he's like, "I'm gonna be the Ultimate Warrior, but not be bigoted and actually be good at wrestling." And it's all this stuff where it's like, and then Effie comes out of nowhere. And in like 3 years, every time I hear him on a podcast, he's a validation I have of, even though being new in wrestling, your opinion counts. Because I got the benefit. I got into wrestling after I was 21 or 20, and I hit my stride when I'm 26, 27. I'm enough of an adult that I'm not going to let someone take advantage of me. But I also have enough respect that if someone I look up to, like you or Tid or Josh or Bailey, tell me something, it's going to weigh a lot harder than if someone that hasn't done anything in 20 years tells me you're getting too comfortable. I'm like, why is being comfortable a bad thing? Don't you want to be friends with everyone in the locker room, or do you only want to talk to your two buddies? I'm sorry, I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable because I'm too comfortable. Fuck that. Fuck eggshells. Fuck being comfortable. That's my mode for when wrestling season premiere comes back.
Let's just pray to God that it does, man. But no, you're right. Like, I mean, it's crazy what, like, just the slightest reinvention can do. Like, I'll tell this story. I'm just going to try to be careful with it because I don't want to try to come across like a dink. But, like, I remember when I booked Danhausen for the first time, he wrestled a 4-way match with RJ City, Brandon Tidwell, and old Bhupinder Singh, our boy Bhupinder. And I just remember in the back, Cody Deaner was watching the monitor very, very intently. And I didn't really understand why. And all of a sudden, I just heard Tid yell something to Deaner, and I didn't quite hear what he said. But then Deaner just bursted out laughing. And then I asked him afterwards, I'm like, just out of curiosity, like, what was that? Like, why were you watching so intently? And he's just like, I wrestled that kid like 6 or 7 years ago, and this is not what that was. You know what I mean? Is the best way I could put it, because, like, he's like, even just from an in-ring perspective, from a character perspective, like body type perspective, he's just like, this is the biggest 180 I've ever seen in wrestling. And you could just see, like, the look of confusion, pride, what the fuck am I watching? Like, just all of this stuff. Cause, like, he almost kind of out Deaner in crossbody.
Yeah. Which is something I love about crossbody, though. We have that diverse roster of you can have a 30-minute strong style main event. You can also have the 10-minute version of it opening up with Garcia and Fuerza. But then you also had the Danhauses. You have Diener. Me and Diener main evented in December. Both of us were coming from different shows. And that's a match that people, I'm pretty sure on paper, were like, what the fuck? And this is one of the things. Diener's been around forever.
It's not even on paper because I didn't have a main event. I'm just going to pull the curtain back on this one. I didn't have a main event for my December show at the end of our November show. And I was literally like, what the fuck am I going to do? And then Diener just literally heard me say that. And he's just like, I'm available if you need me. And I'm like, have you ever wrestled Albright? And he's just like, no. And I'm just like, and then and again, it's no disrespect to Cody. But I literally had to sit there and I'm like, is this a match that would suck? Or like, how the fuck would this go? Like, I couldn't figure it out. So like, I remember going to you and I was just like, what do you think? And like, I don't even think I finished my sentence. And you're just like, yes, please give me Cody Diener. Please give me Cody Diener. Yes.
I probably said, fuck yeah, or let's do it.
Yeah. And I was just like, that's what we're doing then. And I will be completely honest with you. Leading up to that match, like to the time the match started, because leading into that day, I knew that you were coming from Barrie, I want to say, and I'm pretty sure Diener was coming from Niagara Falls. So I was petrified because I'm like, oh my God, like these guys don't even really like have time to like sit and really do anything.
We've never touched.
I was nervous, but I also knew that I got Jake something last minute on that show, and that made me really happy. Because he ended up wrestling Aiden Prince and Del Bruno in a three-way, and they ended up having probably, there's a picture, and I'm sorry to sidetrack, but there's a picture from that match. This is like my favorite picture, one of my favorite pictures in our company's history, where like Prince ended up on Jake's shoulders, and they didn't even plan this, they told me, but at the exact same time, like Del Bruno like goes to stand to like to look at them, and at the exact same time Prince and Jake just both flip the double bird, and the picture is so great because Del Bruno again wasn't expecting it, right? So you just kind of see the genuine like, what the fuck on his face. It was great. You could see the
double birds.
Yeah, it was fantastic. But yeah, so let's go. Okay, so let's talk about that Diener match. I'm glad this is going completely off the rails, by the way, and different than every other podcast that I've done so far, just because, again, for anybody that's listening right now, this is our actual third attempt at this podcast, so I'm kind of veering away from a bit of the typical questions because we've kind of already asked them. But this is great, and I'm enjoying this conversation. So tell me about your match with Diener, because I'm super interested in how the hell you even decided to go about that, because for anybody that doesn't know and doesn't completely understand, like, Diener is a very, very like he's an anomaly here in Ontario, not and like in general, but like he is like a certain kind of I can't really it's hard to explain Diener to somebody from outside of Ontario, because I think they see the Impact version of him and they're just like, okay, it's that guy, but like he's got this different vibe to him when he's in Ontario, man. Like he's got this weird Hulk Hogan vibe to him, like when he gets going, and like he just has that ability to bring it out in whatever crowd that he's in front of, especially our crowd, which is really awesome. But like having to combat that, because you're our guy. So like he has this Hogan feeling or effect, but like you're the guy there. So like, tell me about that process.
So side story to that, I think if you put a T chart or wherever the fuck it's called, and you put sports entertainers on one side and wrestlers on the other, you'll have Cena, Diener, and Hulk Hogan on one side. And then you'll have like guys like Bailey, Josh, me, Kurt Angle, guys like that are like, we're going to wrestle the gimmicky stuff you don't think about. But I was asked by a younger guy at breakfast, not even dinner, because it was like an early training thing. And then we went out for brunch afterwards. And he asked me, he's like, oh, someone told me that there's pro wrestlers that can like tell stories and they don't have to bump or whatever, and then there's wrestlers, and then I just told him, that's bullshit. everyone's a pro wrestler, no matter what side of the spectrum you fall on things. And that weekend, I did this on Monday, and on the way to Crossbody, I threw up 3 times in a McDonald's bag. So I went in a little under the weather. As soon as I got there, I went and brushed my teeth immediately.
I do remember that, actually, because I remember that as soon as you got there, you didn't even want to shake my hand. You just gave me like a quick hug because you're like, my hands are dirty. Just get out of my – and then, yeah, you went and handled your business. Yeah. But I think that you guys both got there around intermission, if I'm not mistaken.
We got there, I think, like a match before intermission. I got there slightly before dinner. I was able to go to the washroom and make sure the sweatpants I was wearing that got a little bit of vomit on it was taken care of.
Okay, so Diener got there in time to set up his merch table and get his real work done. So you guys probably 100%. Had about – so you guys had 3 matches essentially to get your stuff figured out. And you guys ended up putting in, I believe, 25 minutes. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, please go out of your way and do yourself a favor. Go to independentwrestling.tv, and it was our Another Hooligans holiday show from this past December. It was fucking phenomenal, man. I really enjoyed that match.
I loved it because he also pitched it to me because I knew we wanted to involve Alexia and Fuerza because near the end, I'm getting desperate. I need my friends now to help me retain this championship. And then Diener has a story with Jimbo. Fuerza has a story with Jimbo. Diener is coming up with ideas for the match. He's like, okay, this is what I pitched to Ben, because you and I have always been open about ideas so that we don't spring it upon each other. And there's sometimes disagreements, but there's also just we're throwing shit on the walls, see which ones match up, and we're like, okay, we'll run with this. And Diener pitched something that was very similar to what I was thinking. And he's like, I want to go Attitude Era Raw. And I popped real hard for that because I'm like, yep, that's my shit right there. That's my shit. Let's rock and roll. And while calling the match, this is where maybe it would come off that I was a little cocky or something. But a year ago before that, so December the previous year, I would not have been able to be confident enough to have that match with Diener. And while he's calling stuff with me, and I know he's used to younger guys and the mentality of high spot, high spot, high spot, he would say something and there was like a little mocking tone of being like, oh, that's very 2019 indie wrestling. But the spot was like miss a splash, hit a enziguri, and I was like, no, that's 2007 Samoa Joe X Division stuff. And it was like, I think that was the moment I earned his respect because we played a little bit of tennis right there. And he's like, okay, let's see how the match goes. And then I called some stuff on the fly. It looks like there's a couple shots where I look like I just punched him right in the face, or there's one great angle on my back fist that I fucking love. Yeah. But after the match, anyways, it's like, no, that was a good match. And the people loved it. And just like the small little interactions, I told them to go back to the blue ribbon division and people were like, oh shit. And it's just like, it was a real fun match. And I'm pretty sure no one expected the match we had from it, and it was great. And Attitude Era Raw, it's everyone intermingled storylines, people booed on the right things, people cheered. Diener's awesome.
Yeah, you guys work really well together. And I mean, especially for like your character, like you complement his character very well, just because again, like he almost needs that big monster to fight, you know what I mean? But at Crossbody, it's a bit of a different animal because like the monster that he's fighting just so happens to be the guy that everybody knows is their guy. You know what I mean? Like you're this dark, evil character that everybody just loves and respects. And that's the biggest word I can probably say is respects, because, you know, the moment that your lights, the lights go down and like your production kicks in for your music, you could genuinely hear like individual people like just screaming the funniest shit, like, oh, you're fucked, or like, Albright, he's gonna about to fuck someone up, like. And it's funny because like I'm not even exaggerating. Like I remember the one time, I want to say I think it was Mr. Atlantis that you worked on a showcase series show and we didn't announce the match, and like Atlantis comes out and like he does his entrance and like, man, he had everybody going because like Atlantis was like he's been on fire last year, man. Like he's been doing really well, and like especially in front of our audience. And you just heard the crowd; they were so happy to fucking see him, and they were like so happy to like it was just everybody was in a good mood. And then the lights went down, and you just literally hear people go like, oh, fuck, you're dead. Like, oh, who'd he piss off? And then, like, as soon as your music starts, again, people are just like, well, good to know you, Mr. Atlantis. It's like they ditched him so goddamn fast. Now,
Atlanta. Let's talk about Atlantis then, because we mentioned him right before we started. This is where my maturity in wrestling and being able to reflect and stuff. I wrestled Atlantis in June 2018, and it was dog shit. It was so bad. Moose was the referee. Spots were just gone. He wasn't going to catch my dive. There's a photo of him not being anywhere close. So I'm like, well, I got to shit can myself, and it hurt. And just like that match, I literally walked out because it was 2 weeks before Canada Day weekend. So it's like the 2-year anniversary of this then. So I walk out to the lobby, and I'm just like, that match was so bad. And it was supposed to be just like a 5-6 minute match because they had their storyline. I was supposed to face Stratos because the Riot Makers thing. And I just sat there. And for the next, 2 weeks at the 6 or 8 different shows I was at, we're setting up the ring. And then I would call the match to someone like, we can go in that ring right fucking now and do that match. And it would be no problem. And then I decided at that moment, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take majority responsibility of all my matches going forward. I want at least 75% say in it, because if it's good, cool. But if it's bad, I can also take responsibility, and you learn more from failing than succeeding. If you ask someone to watch your match and they're like, yeah, it was all right, but they don't tell you anything different, it's like, how am I supposed to learn from that? Because also, we'll talk about the showcase series, same 12 to 80 people are watching in the Audubon thing, which was probably because the next one after this was announced. That one, though, that wasn't announced, I went in with this weird mentality of like, I told you even when you sent me the list of the showcase people that were down, let me face Atlantis, we'll get it out of the way early on. I probably jinxed myself because we had to revisit it 5 months later. But I was like, let's get it out of the way. The match happens, and I got in this weird mode of like, I want to make this look like a shoot fight. I want it to look like we got real pissed off at each other. And I even, like, very much my version of, I don't need weapons, my hands are my fists. I was like, oh, I will whisper, don't kick out, what the fuck? And it would get, like, at least the 5 people near the ring to be like, ooh, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And the match didn't go well because we tried to do a work shoot, and it was the dumbest idea ever, but I learned from that failure. And then we wrestled again in the semifinals, which wasn't supposed to happen. It's just schedules end up, and legitimately, like a real tournament, it's the different points, and it went me and Atlantis. And then I went in with the mentality of, I didn't go in with the mentality of, I'm going to give Atlantis his best match. I'm going to give one of my favorite matches. I just went in, I'm like, the first one didn't go well. The second one went worse than the first one. What can I do? And I figured out, I'm like, okay, well, let's not work against each other. Let's work with each other. I know your strengths and weaknesses. And one of his weaknesses is remembering things. If there's a younger guy, he can remember a 20-minute match and needs every moment called for. No problem. We'll call it 1,000 times. I like watching the show before my match, but if you're nervous, let's do that. I'm cool with that. But with Atlantis, he's been around for 10-ish years. He knew the important parts, and I made the decision. I went to the washroom. I took a poop, and I was like, I'm not going to talk to him again about the match. And I tell him, I'll call it with you one more time, and that'll be right before our match. And he's like, oh, okay. And then we call it, and he even goes, let's call it one more time. I'm like, no, bro, I got you. Don't worry. I'll be your glue out there. And that's where Von Vertigo pointed out to me that was like the sweetest thing he's ever heard. And it was just me taking that. And I showed someone, actually, Ryan Knight from Knights of the Squared Circle. We were just hanging out, and we were watching some of the showcase shows. And I showed him that match, and I was like, I'm really proud of this match. And you can see I'm working extra hard in it, but also I'm making Lance look good. I'm looking good. And the match is one of my favorite matches ever, where it's the first 2 in that series were my least favorite, and probably led to just me just like going, ugh, I could have taken those and just been like, fuck wrestling, I can quit. Or I learned from the scar. I got better and I improved. And I love Mike.
Oh, dude, you know what? And that's kind of one of the cool things is that, like, with the showcase series, and for a lot of people who may not know, just kind of real quick, it was an idea that Albright pitched to me a while ago, and it was one of those things where when he pitched it to me, the timing just was not right. Like, we were still pretty early on as far as a company went, and I didn't have my legs underneath me. I still didn't I knew what the company was, and I knew what I've always known what I've wanted it to be. It just took a minute to get there. And I just wanted to make sure that if we were going to have side projects, that it represented the brand that I wanted to build correctly, but I wanted to make sure that that brand was built correctly first. So once it took about another year and a bit for us to get there, but then I remember the one day I was just like, I was probably just driving for work, and it just dawned on me. I'm like, time's right. It's right now. We got to do this right now. And I think I called you and was just like, all right, we're going to move forward with this. But I've got a bit of a different idea of how I want to process it and everything, because your idea was like, it was pretty close, but there was just a few things that I just tweaked to make it a little bit different. Because
I would say that my idea initially was what NXT was when I was on the network, and it was taping leads to a big show, and I enjoyed the crossbody building. I was like, this studio's great, and like I had a vision idea, but the fact of crossbody still running shows, it would lead to this weird brand confusion.
Not only brand confusion, but one thing that we found out very, very quickly is that you can't rely on everybody to show up, because those aren't huge. Those aren't moneymaker shows. Those are certainly, they're experienced shows. They're shows where you can make a couple of bucks if like you go out there and you perform well enough and you've got merchandise and whatnot. And like there's the opportunity is there, and you get immediate footage right away. And like right away. Like there's been times
within 12 hours.
There's been times where the Americans haven't even gotten home, and they were watching their matches on YouTube, like in the car. Because
we've been at dinner and it's gone up.
Sometimes they've been quicker than others. Sometimes, unfortunately, not as quick. But we've, that's the whole point of those shows. And kind of reverting back to what I was saying before, is that like you learn very quickly that you can't rely on everybody to show up every show. So that's where the element of the surprise shows kind of came in for me, just because, to be honest with you, I was like, let's just try this one week, because I'm advertising people, I'm advertising matches, and I'm not following through. And as a promoter, it is the worst feeling that you could possibly feel in the world, to advertise something and then not follow through on it. And so that's where I was just like, okay, let's do a surprise show. And then that surprise show was so much fun, where I was just like, okay, this is, now I found like what we got to do. But then there was also this other potential opportunity that was available to me that I don't want to get too deep into, but fuck. Okay, I gotta choose my words carefully here. So there was an opportunity that was presented to me for the showcase series to be presented on a much larger platform than it's currently on, and that it's really ever been on, right? There was an idea in place for the showcase series from other people. And so immediately I kind of went into, okay, well, if it's going to be on this particular platform, for example, then I need to make sure that it's correct. So then I started kind of coming up with almost like a weird TV format for the shows, where like there was it was almost going to essentially be like 2 episodes into one. Like each show was going to be, we were going to film like an hour-long episode or whatever the hell it was. I can't remember exactly the details on that one, but we did that for weeks because again, like that was the direction that we thought we were going. That was the direction that we were just getting ready for. And then for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And we just kind of, again, tweaked maybe a couple other small things. And like now all of a sudden we've just got this amazing, like kind of skeleton for the showcase series where like we announce like the main event, which is typically Pretty Ricky versus whoever, and people genuinely enjoy paying their $5 to come down and watch these shows because we've genuinely built something really special with those showcase series shows because everybody that comes down understands what the opportunity is, because we don't. I'd like to say that I'm open to everybody, but that's really not the case, because if you're a piece of shit, then you're not invited. But that's kind of like the rule for everything I'm involved with, I guess. But our audience has kind of come to that point where they've realized that like our crew is genuinely a very, very hardworking crew, and whatever they get for those shows, they know that if they get their Pretty Ricky, they're already getting their $5 worth. So anything else is just cake. And then a lot of the times they'll end up with you, and then like they'll end up with a Mark Wheeler match, and then they'll end up with like an Alexia match, or Christ, we had Jamie Senegal come down there the one time. Like we've had MC
fucking
Hardbody,
Bailey and
fucking Veda, you know, like the amount of like I've had to literally like force one time because there was one show where I needed some hands because we were really short staffed that week, and I put up on my Facebook that I'm like, hey, I'm looking for people, I need some people this week. I had to like literally call and argue with him to stop Madman Fulton from driving from fucking Ohio to come and be a surprise at a goddamn showcase series show, because he just wanted to wrestle and help his buddy out on a Friday that he had off. And I was just like, I got this fucking monster that is willing to drive from Ohio to do this, but I'm having such a difficult time finding people locally. So that's where that's why the showcase series is basically a surprise show, because now I can work around all that stuff. But to tie this kind of back into Mr. Atlantis, these showcase series have been huge for guys like him because he's working like so constantly and in front of the same crowd. So like he's literally, guys like him, they're forced to evolve, and that was probably what they've needed for their entire careers. And not only are they being forced to evolve, but doing so again on a bi-weekly basis with, you know, the bigger shows stacked on top of that. And it's gotten to the point where, again, like at one point in time, and Mike knows this, you know, so we're not hurting feelings, but there was at one point in time where when people saw their name against his, they were just like, this is going to be a rough night, you know, like this, I don't know. Like he's very rigid. Like he's very this, and moving him is very difficult. Once you learn how to work with them, and once you realize how much he genuinely wants this, how good he just wants to be at this, you're just like, and the effort that this man genuinely puts forward and how much better he's gotten in the last year and a half. Whenever people see their name beside his name on those shows now, they're all just like, fucking yeah. Like I have people literally beg me to work with Mr. Atlantis now. Prince at one point in time was just like, I'm not coming down to do a showcase series unless I'm actually wrestling with Mr. Atlantis. Like he wanted that match so fucking bad, and he got it, and he came down with like, he's like, it was almost some of the same mentality that you took, where he's just like, yeah, I remember him saying, because he would crash at my place for those shows, he's just like, I'm going to give Mr. Atlantis his best fucking match that he's ever fucking had, and I'm taking that shit personally, you know what I mean? And so many guys have
that drive. It's, you want to get better, you set a goal, and unless you have that rung to climb on the ladder or a challenge, you don't know if you'll be able to do it. And unfortunately, and fortunately, depending on the person, Mr. Atlantis is a challenge that you're like, well, I need to conquer this. This is my 5K. If I want to run a marathon, I got to do this. And it depends on the talent, because I heard a story that one of the recent showcase shows, he wrestled a younger guy, and that younger guy kind of like shit on him or something, which led to me showing my match with Atlantis. I'm like, when you're new in wrestling, all of your matches are garbage. So the better you are, the better you can make your opponent look. You don't make the referee look like shit, and it all looks good. And it's, if you start out going, oh, well, it wasn't good because of this, I never critique my opponents, even when it is their fault, because I'm like, well, what could I have done in this situation? I could have took a better lead. They don't do this, so cool. We won't do that. And Mr. Lands is, if you want to prove you're a good enough wrestler and you want to get better, you go, hey, Ben, can I wrestle Atlantis on Friday?
And it's funny that you say that, because I was just about to say, like, you probably think that maybe working with him would be rough if you're new, but you really know how good you are, because, like, man, I wrestled Mr. Atlantis before the pandemic, not too long before the pandemic happened, at like some random fair show, and dude, we fucking crushed it, like, because I know how to work with them. And it's not like a matter of like, oh, like you have to have a Mr. Atlantis match. No, Mr. Atlantis had a fucking Big Ben Ortmanns match, and like I made that motherfucker work, and like he stuck with me. I just know how to work with them. You know what I mean? And he was there for everything. Like our first match we ever had, it was very similar, where like he actually went to go and give me a house show dive, and I went to go and catch him, and he didn't even quite make it over the rope, the poor feller. But then we get to our but then but again, like that was something that we shouldn't have done. And now that and that I knew better, and you know how to work with the guy, I was just like, man, like me and him fucking killed it. And at the end of the match, I literally said to myself, I'm like, I could wrestle that guy every fucking day for the rest of my life. Like, and I'm saying that with every genuine like love in my heart. Like I really could. Like he's so easy to work with when you just kind of get wrestling. And if anything, like that's why I love having him around so much, is because like for the younger guys, like you can almost see it. Sometimes they get frustrated wrestling with him, just because, again, like he's hard to move guy. It's not because of his work ethic or his attitude or his skill. It's just he's difficult to fucking move.
He's a scientist, for the record. Like he is a smart person.
Yeah. He's not a scientist. He's
an engineer.
An engineer. Yeah. Like he's an actual very, very smart guy. But yeah, man, like he is one of my pride and joys, that guy. I love that guy so goddamn much. I actually just ordered his tank top off the Crossbody Pro Wrestling Tees store yesterday, which you guys can all do right now by going to prowrestlingtees.com/crossbodyprowrestling.
Boom.
And if you watch this weekend, which I'm hoping to have this up still, if you use the code Canada, you get 20% off. And if you're in the States, use the code America, I think. It's either USA or America. Use one of those. Or use Canada. Just buy one of our fucking shirts, please and thank you. So
I would look at Atlantis, to wrap this all up, as wrestling is this weird thing where, especially when you're early on and you have training matches which lead to pre-show matches, it's you understand some sort of formula or whatever, but it's the hardest, easiest thing you'll ever learn. Where it's now I'm confident in my ability. Where my sister had her wedding on November 1st. I wrestled Freebeard, and I got there like 5 minutes before we had our match. We had our match, and I was out of the building within an hour of arriving to the building. I think I got there at 7:35, and I got out of there at like 8:15. And it's one of the things where I can now have a quote-unquote Holden Albright match, which I don't even know what the fuck that means. But it's like I can go have a match. We'll be aggressive. I know a chop will get over, a nice headbutt. I'll get German suplexed on my fucking head at some point. And it's like, I understand those ebbs and flows, but if you're younger and everything's been easy, you've wrestled people you've trained with, and you're constantly like, oh, I know what you do. Let's do this. Let's do this thing we've done 20 times, where it's like, okay, that's cool when you first start out. But then at some point you're going to wrestle someone you've never wrestled, or you're going to get an opportunity to go to Michigan or Chicago. And that's where you learn, oh, wrestling's the same but different everywhere, and you learn little tricks of this will get over. And I didn't even realize Diener has very much the typical Hulk Hogan hot comeback of getting hit and hulking up, and I weirdly enough have my version of that, where it's when I'm getting hit, and it was at a showcase show specifically. I got chopped. I think it was against Fuerza in the finals of the Audubon tournament. I got chopped, and I just did this weird little thing where I just like flexed in, and two fans were like, oh, you messed up now. And I didn't even know I did that, but it's very much a, come on, hit me again. And I'm using that to hulk up, where me and Diener, separate wrestlers, but we still have kind of the same thing, because it gets an emotional connection with the audience, which at the end of the day, that's all we want to create.
You guys are doing the exact same thing. You just added your own seasoning to it, and that's what pro wrestling
Boom.
is, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to get into the rapid fire questions. You can't really evade these ones here, but this is, dude. This has been a really great talk so far, and I'm glad that we pretty much evaded the first script on this, just because this has been a great talk. So hopefully everybody else is
It's a
enjoying
peek
this.
behind the curtain of crossbody, which is like, that's what people really want to hear between us. They want to know that little thing in the showcase series.
Now, get ready. I'm going to ask you to be very quick with these answers, because I don't even know how long we've been filming for, just because we've been taking too many goddamn stabs at this. So,
dude,
I know, right? What's your favorite match you've been a part of?
The Atlantis one, and then the Bailey one, where we talked about a lot on the first one. But Bailey's a guy that you're like, he's a flippy cruiserweight guy, but he was the first person I wrestled. And I wrestled Elgin. I wrestled Josh. I was like, oh shit, this is what it feels like to be in Japan. He has the hardest strikes I've ever wrestled.
Yeah, he's an anomaly, that guy. I love me some speedball. Who's on TV right now? Who's not on TV right now? Rather, who should be on TV right now?
Jody Threat. There's a lot of women wrestlers that are signed because they're females, and Jody is very much put together, a package, and is also mature and not a fucking child. And it's very much, if I want a female star in my company, I go, oh yeah, this chick has a look and she's good. Let's do this.
100%. Who's your favorite band?
Not a band guy, but I'm pretty sure I listed Girls Aloud, which was a girl group out of the UK. I found them 10 years later. They were targeted for 12-year-old girls, and they were very attractive. 20-year-old Brendan enjoyed it.
You know what's amazing is you had the opportunity to change that answer, and you still stuck with the same one. Oh, God bless you, kid. I can't remember what this was, but we're going to ask it anyway. What's your favorite sports team?
The Toronto Blue Jays, because I kind of understand baseball, but if there's no underline and a time limit next to the game, I don't understand the sport.
That's fair. Who is your favorite opponent that you've worked with thus far?
I gotta say Josh Alexander. It's kind of like a chapter thing where every time I wrestle him, I'm a different wrestler, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and luckily the last few times it's just constantly gotten better and better. So Josh, because I know I'll wrestle him a few more times.
100%. What's the biggest goal that you've set for yourself that you've accomplished?
My only real goal was to be a wrestler, and I accomplished that, and everything else kind of just went, oh shit, I don't know what next. And you mentioned that whole big goal, and you need those small goals.
Yep.
I set my goal way too small that I needed to figure out everything else, which just led to me going from worse.
Fair enough. What's the next goal on your list then you need to accomplish? Even small or big?
I want to get a contract by the time I'm 30, because I know there's some people that don't like me, and it's going to be a little hard to not see the name Holden Albright. Still got to be a little angry.
Give it to him. Give it to him, young man. Go fucking get it. Okay, so this is a bit of a fucking complicated one, but because you're one of the guys who genuinely helps out the most with as many up-and-comers as possible, not just with crossbody, but just literally in general. But who are the first 5 up-and-coming names that just come to your head that people should watch out for?
Honorable mention, Young Love, because he is working hard, and a lot of people do know that name, so I'm not going to mention him, but honorably.
I don't think a lot of people do know his name, but we'll stick with the honorable mention, and I do think that people do need to know who Young Love is, because I will straight up say that and I've told this to him, and it's probably one of my favorite stories. I wanted with every fiber in my being to hate that kid, and he showed up and did all of the things that I asked anybody to ever do when it comes to just doing the right things when it comes to getting a spot on the show, without me even saying, like, do this, do this, do this. He just did it all. So, like, he went from somebody that I genuinely wanted to hate, because I remember him being a bit of a troll online when he was even younger, and that's just how I knew him. So when he eventually earned my respect the old-fashioned way, he's I scooped him up under my wing, and I'd do anything I could to take care of that kid. But good honorable mention.
He's 100% like our little brother and shit. Like, we give him shit all the time, but it's because we care about him and we love
him and Kyle. It's almost like it's like you don't enjoy beating them up, but you have to beat them up because they're your two little younger brothers who that's how they learn. As weird as it sounds.
That's
love them to fucking death, though, man. Okay, so other than Young Love,
say Jimbo Jones, which is an obvious reference, student, Clay Wilson, Evan Greenaway, and Wade Allen.
Sorry, Jimbo Jones, Evan Greenaway, Clay Wilson, Wade Allen, and who?
And Ridley, Josh's student.
Okay, sorry, you broke up just a smidge bit there, but oddly enough, the breaking up is actually like I've heard what you've been saying, so I just missed the Ridley part. He's jacked as shit, isn't he? I've never actually seen him and met him in person.
I wouldn't say jacked to shit. He's in really good shape, and
That's
my
good.
way of giving back was at NSW. I was bored, and I'm just like, I've had title matches, whatever. Can I do a legitimate open gauntlet against people who you want people to film promos, and it's very hard sometimes to get people to do that. And my two aces in the hole was I knew I could message Ridley. I knew I could message Jimbo. I'm like, cut a promo. I'll wrestle you guys. And the third spot was open. I believe it was a guy named like Aubrey Ash or something from CWF that Steve Brown recommended because his promo actually, he had White and Nerdy from Weird Al played under it. And
Fair.
I laughed so hard. But also, I had like John Gonzalez cut a promo, Cassie Cool. There's so many people actually cut promos because they knew if they would wrestle me, I'm going to put my heart into it. And it's an opportunity because too many kids just between Crossbody and Hamilton and Superkick and Battle Arts, if you have a school promotion, you kind of just wrestle there where it's Ridley didn't have that. And I know Jimbo Jones would be a fucking star anywhere. I was like, I want to wrestle you guys and let's fucking go. And it shows, hey, Hamilton, there's other kids out there. Don't get comfortable, which is a bad. I mentioned being comfortable earlier. It's the difference between shooting the shit backstage and just assuming you have a spot on the show because you live 5 minutes away.
And that's a big difference. So moving on to the next one, what's your proudest moment outside of the ring thus far?
I think it has to be the showcase. Look at what Rockstar was doing, what IWA was doing in 2004, what PWA was doing a decade and a bit ago. And it's like, I just wanted reps. And now this year was off to a great start because there's a few shows that C4 ran. And whereas Alexia Wheeler and I couldn't do these shows, but people stepped up. Amy Crimson, John Gonzalez. And it's just like, fuck yeah, there's this opportunity there. And you see the guys that want to wrestle. And there's a spot.
Huge mention to John Gonzalez because that kid stuck out to me so much. And I also want to mention Bianca Corelli as well because that girl is going to have –
oh, my God.
That girl is going to have the absolute toughest time just because of her name and who her father is. But I have never seen somebody walk into a locker room and earn everybody's fucking respect like that. This girl is a goddamn G. And like I've known that for a very long time because like I've gotten to know Bianca quite a bit over the last like couple of years. But when I brought her on to do like the wrestling stuff, I was just like I was a little nervous and I wasn't really sure how it was going to go. And then I can't remember exactly what showcase series show it was, but there was a show where she was doing a mixed tag match where she overshot and she smashed her fucking face off of the side of the ring post and it destroyed, like it was gross. And people have to remember that this is a goddamn beauty queen, like a model, like somebody who makes money with her face, and she just done fucked it up. And like any single one of us would have looked at that in the mirror and went like, oh fuck, I am fucking toast. She finished the match, first of all, still stayed in character. Second of all, when
My favorite line. Say it.
Do you go ahead? Drop it. It's your line. You drop it.
She just yells, "Oh, I'm not beautiful anymore," and I fucking bust a gut.
I do remember that. I was like, "What the fuck did she say?" That's right. That was her. Like, she's on the apron and she's just like, look at her face. She's like, "I'm not beautiful anymore," and then stormed to the back. But like, did that in character. And the best part was, man, is that like. I did everything I could to keep her calm, just because, like, I've thankfully having a bit of a background with fighters and stuff like that, and like even being in a corner or two, you know what you need to do to people in order to kind of treat them, especially when they're cut open in their face, and you don't want to mix the adrenaline and all that. Like, there's just a lot that can go wrong, and you got to be really careful with how you approach people. And man, she stayed calm. Like, there was one or two people that I had to literally yell at to fuck off, because they were just like, they would come over and be like, "Ugh!" and I'd be, "Shut the fuck up. Like, she's doing great." And like, man, like a goddamn G. Like, that's the best way I can explain it, man. Like, she literally earned so many people's respect that night. And I don't know, man. Like, that's she needs to get an honorable mention for that. And like, and just her work is coming along. It was coming along so well. Like, the showcase series were huge for her and Amy. Like, those were like, you could just tell that they were really starting to find their footing. You know what I mean? And then it just unfortunately got all taken away. So hopefully we can get them back and get them getting some reps in as soon as we get back to normal here. But to finish off the rapid fire, which hasn't been so rapid fire, what's the best piece of advice that you could give to somebody who wants to do what you do?
Listen to everyone. You don't know everything, let alone really anything, and just surround yourself with people that know way more than you, and you can learn. Just never stop learning. The moment you stop learning, you stop progressing in life, in wrestling, and a hobby. It's that giving up. And I work with a bunch of people that are 49 and they gave up when they were younger than I am. And every time they ask if I walk in, because you mentioned Bianca having her head cut open, and everyone's like, "I know how to deal with this. Don't." Whereas me, everyone's just like, "Holy shit, you have a vagina on your forehead."
Yeah, everybody's laughing and just taking pictures, getting them to Instagram as fast as they could.
Yeah, but that's all great, because like my first reaction is, well, I guess it adds to the look. And then a year later, I break my tooth. It adds to the look. And it's just, if you don't have that mentality and you get stuck in there, other people from the outside go, "You fucked up your face. Your mouth is screwed up." It's like, yeah, but people buy T-shirts with my face on it. People want to say hi to me at the merch table. There's little girls writing school projects about their hero, and it's Holden Albright. And that's so terrifying to me, because I'm still every day going, okay, do I make a bad decision or not? And it's like, well, at least in their eyes, they know I'm making good decisions.
That is frightening to think, because you're just like, am I raising, like, is she looking up to me as a hero in a good way, or is this poor woman about to become a fucking serial killer? Like, it's going to go one of two ways.
We got 10 years to find out.
So to end these podcasts off, buddy, I always give my guest a question to me, just because I ask all the questions. The whole point of this is to get to know each other a little bit better. So do you have anything that you would like to know from me, or have any questions for me?
I asked this last time, and it's very much every time I think of you, I just want you to know how thankful we are for a platform, and Crossbody saying building better wrestlers. You're building better people also. And was that moment, because you were supposed to retire this year, and you have all these people though coming out of the woodshed that are like, "I want to wrestle you. Yeah, Ben, let's do this before you're done." But the amount you're going to give back behind the scenes, and the amount of people that are going to remember you as helping them, how has that even settled in yet?
No, because the thing is that it's I can oddly say that I finally understand what people say when they say that it's hard to look back on stuff that you've done, just because you're so focused on what you're doing now. even though we're in this pandemic and you're just like, well, what the fuck are you doing? Well, I'm hustling. I'm busy. I'm doing a whole lot of other things. And like, I'm working on different projects. I'm working on stuff like this. I'm trying to make money for my crew, through other projects, like, I'm just trying to do things that I think are the right thing to do, just because I know that you guys work so fucking hard for me. So for me to try to come up with ways to try to help you guys out during, uh, a bit of a shitty time, while it may not be as much as I want to be able to help everybody out, at least it's something, and not only is it something to help you guys out, but it also gives me something to do, and it keeps my mind going, and it keeps me being creative. One of the biggest things that I wanted to do and I wanted to accomplish with this podcast, not just getting to know my friends, but I have always felt that I've been kind of a shit communicator, and that I haven't been very good at speaking. So it's something that I'm certainly working towards. One thing that actually popped me about a week and a half ago is I was having a conversation with Fulton, and he like stopped me mid conversation, and he's just like, man, you got a very good vocabulary. And I'm like, I'm working on it. I genuinely am trying to work on it. Right. But as far as the helping people and whatnot goes, I've really realized that that's all on perception. I do my best to try to provide everybody a platform and to give them opportunities that I know that looking back, that I would have wanted myself and still would want even now, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm probably going to end up taking advantage of it when it gets back, just because if I want to go out and I want to, wrestle all these people that I want to wrestle, like, I mean, the amount of people from the Showcase series in general that I want to wrestle, well, fucking, I'll wrestle them on the goddamn Showcase series. I've got that opportunity and I can. And one of the biggest things that I've always wanted to do, and that I feel is genuinely important, is because I'm in a leadership role there, I feel that it's extremely important to lead by example. Now, if people decide to want to, how they decide to take that is completely up to them, I suppose. But I'm always going to do my best to work my ass off and try to lead that way. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Like, I mean, as far as like a man goes and like just be a human being, I've made some really fucking shoddy mistakes. I know I've done some, maybe not some so perfect things, and it happens, but I also know that pro wrestling is like, again, it's the one thing that's I used to say that it's the one thing that never left me, but it fucking left us during COVID. But it's that one thing that's been my constant my whole life. And if I can give back to anybody the way that the business has given back to me, because I used to think that all my dark times were because of pro wrestling, because, when you grew up in the time that I grew up and you came in that era, you kind of thought that, okay, I need to do this and I need to act a certain way and I need to go out and I need to take these things and do this. And, you start to realize I don't need, there was never a piece of paper that when I signed up to pro wrestling that said, you have to be a piece of shit human being, signed Ben Ortmanns, go do your thing, baby boo. That doesn't exist. So once I realized that these decisions that I was making was just on me, I realized that, like, okay, lead by example. Because if you go out there and you tell all these people to work hard, telling them is one thing. But if you go out there and you work your fucking ass off and you accomplish these things that people set all these different like roofs on you and ceilings that you weren't supposed to get through, but you crash through them anyway, that's the best thing that I could do for you guys, and that's, it's funny, man. When I went and did my extra work for the WWE, I genuinely felt selfish because I kept it from you guys. And I felt that I was focusing energy on myself leading into that. And I was just like, that's not energy that I'm focusing on my team, my students, and my crew. And I genuinely felt shitty about that. But again, I was like, okay, I can still manage to give everybody my time and I can still manage to do these things and I can still work on these things outside of it, and again, a bit of a long-winded answer, which I apologize for, but I guess to kind of shorten it up and to wrap that up, I don't really know if I feel like I'm having any impact on people's careers, just because I don't know. Because we're still pretty new into this, you know. I would like to hope to think that I'm having some impact on their lives, you know, and hopefully, you know, whether it be just providing them the opportunity or just being a friend, you know, I genuinely do hope that I can be somebody that's these younger guys, you know, yourself included, all these guys can look up to and come to if you ever need anything and all that other jazz. But yeah, I guess that's just stuff that I don't really think about. I guess I just try to just focus on the next thing and just try to make sure that we have something to come back to and to keep working for, you know?
You mentioned something there about not being a piece of shit to be a wrestler. I mentioned this before, and I feel like the previous eras, it's you want to be a wrestler and you think being a wrestler was a certain thing. You had to do certain things or behave a certain way. And don't be a mark, don't be whatever, where it's now like I see the Liger in your background, I see your Funko Pops. I have a shit ton of stuff too, where it's like now our generation, we just want to wrestle. And the fact that we're called wrestlers, that's just a bonus. And the real truth to anyone in wrestling specifically, because the learning thing is about life, but wrestling, it's be a good person first, because good things will come to you. It might not be tomorrow, it might not be next week, but it'll come in years. And as long as you can sleep at night, that's better than being a good brother. And we're learning that on Twitter in the past 2 weeks, which, by the way, I feel a little better knowing that hashtag isn't just a wrestling thing. There's a bunch of stuff that came out in the video game industry. So we're all tunnel focused in wrestling and going, oh my God, will wrestling return? It's an everywhere thing. It's the new version of the Black Lives Matter thing also is the new version of Me Too, where it's just minorities and victims speaking up for themselves and defending themselves. And we can only grow better. We can only grow better if we know how we make other people feel. And if you're remembered by making someone laugh, that's a good thing. There's too many bad people in the world. Let's not add to that.
You know, and I guess that's kind of what my whole point was to that was I know that there's people that still look down on me in the wrestling business to this day. Like I know that there's people that everybody looks up to and respects that for some reason, and here's the thing, I don't really give a fuck. There's whatever reason, they just never wanted to show me the respect that I know that I've deserved and that I've earned. I'm not going to say it's because he came down to my gym unannounced one time and thought he was going to get up on me and I kicked the shit out of him. But guys like that, you know what I mean? They don't have that respect for me, and that's fine. And that's only because, in my opinion, I think that they've been stuck in their ways for so long with not liking me that now when they see me doing things like this and helping the young kids out, like across the board, and it doesn't matter where you're at, you know, like if you are just a good person and you've got passion for the business, then I'm welcoming you on our team, you know, and I'm trying to show and lead by example that yes, you can work hard. Yes, you can do all these things. But the most important thing about all of that is above your work ethic, above your talent, is be a good person. Because if you be a good person, then people will excuse the other two. You know what I mean? If you're not talented enough, whatever, that's fine, because we can get you there. That's what the showcase series is for. That's what having veterans around for. That's just what having other friends around are for, because again, you can learn from other guys that aren't just veterans, you know. But
yeah,
if that's what I could be known for, is just showing people a good way and a hard work ethic, and that being a good person genuinely means more than all of that, but is just as important. You know what I mean? Like the hard work and the work ethic is very important, but again, that's 2A, 2B as far as being a good human is concerned to me, you know. And I'd like to think that we've got a pretty good crew of human beings on our hand at our gym, on our staff at Crossbody Pro Wrestling, everywhere, man. It's a real safe zone, and it's something that I'm really proud of. And it's certainly not just me. It's the crew that we have around us, right?
100%. You can focus either fighting the old generation, or you can focus your energy on building a better tomorrow and focus on the youth. And any hardships we went through, let's not have that for the next one. And that's very much, Tid's the most intimidating person I've ever met. He's also the most kindest person I've ever met. And those are the veterans that last.
Yep. Tid's the godfather of all of us, man. Like he can put everybody in their place, and it doesn't matter who. Like, I mean, name them in Ontario. I don't give a shit who you are. Tid will fucking step on your toes, and he will put you in your place respectfully. And that person that you think might be like, oh, that guy would fucking say something to Tid. No, they fucking won't. Tell you that straight up. Watched it happen. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen
Best
in person.
Twitter account.
I've seen it happen on Twitter. I've watched it happen in text message. I've every which way that you could watch it go down. I've watched it go down, man. Tid's my brother. Now, we are going to start to wrap this.
He's definitely someone, I will just say the last part because I texted this to you. He's not this like, I don't like the word family anymore. I really love the word team because there's captains and assistant captains and all that shit. But it's very much, in a patriarch of a family, you're going to be taken to the woodshed and whipped and shown punishment. Tid isn't that guy. Tid's the guy that you don't want to disappoint because you know if you break his heart, you did something wrong fundamentally. And he's not going to take liberties in the ring. He's going to explain it to you. And that makes you a better person going forward. He taught me how to wrestle so much in the Riot Maker stages of him going like, oh, tag wrestling's like this. And we're like, shit, that's what leads to this perspective I have of this old school, new school. And it's not the fear of God, it's the fear of disappointment, knowing someone has that for you. Chris Tidwell is a blessing for Ontario indie wrestling.
He's helped create a lot of he's fast tracked a lot of guys, man. I think you and Mark working with him in custom really helped you guys out, and I think that it certainly helped you guys out as a team, but I think they helped you guys understand the basic fundamentals of psychology a lot better. I've watched him do it with the Swole Patrol. I've watched him do it with Empire. Like Empire, goddamn, man, when Matt puts some fucking muscle on and when JT just stays consistent, like it's going to be fucking crazy. Like those kids they've gotten pretty good, man. And they just need that, whatever it is, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure it's probably just a physical thing for them. And I know that they're working really hard right now, and they've both got their diets on track and everything. And you can only do so much right now, but man, I genuinely wish the best for those guys. Cause like Tid and Custom went out of their way to really help progress those guys when everybody was looking down on them, you know? But that's just the kind of guy that the notorious TID Chris Tidwell is. He's my brother, man. He's you'll never hear me say a fucking bad word about him. And if anybody does in my presence, they're probably going to end up with my fist in their face. So that's my man. And with that being said, guys, you can find the show on Twitter and Instagram. You can search us at Big Ben AF Podcast, as well as on Facebook under Big Ben and Friends Podcast. You can find us on YouTube by searching the show name because we don't have enough subscribers yet to get an actual channel name. So if you could subscribe, that would be lovely, because if you go and look up Big Ben and Friends in the search engine, it will actually have a drop-down menu of Big Ben No Friends, and it's a really mean rib. I don't like that. I'm not even kidding. When we're done this, go on your computer and start to type in Big Ben and Friends, and there will be like a suggestion where it says Big Ben No Friends, and it's a really it's a big kick in the balls every time I see it. So if I need like 36 more subscribers, help a fucking brother out, please. You can also find
on my wall.
You deserve that for laughing at me, you fuck. You can also find the audio version of the show on Anchor, but let's be real, nobody listens to Anchor. But Anchor distributes our show to Spotify and iTunes for me, and everybody listens to Spotify. So please go to Spotify and listen to the Big Ben and Friends podcast. You can find me on all of my social medias at Big Ben is Angry. You can find Crossbody Pro Wrestling and the Crossbody Pro Wrestling Academy socials all in one place at CBPW Academy. That's on Instagram, Twitter. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Crossbody Pro Wrestling Academy. You can find us on independentwrestling.tv. Use the code Crossbody and get 5 free days. Go and watch all of these amazing matches that we were talking about earlier with Diener, with Josh, with Bailey, with fucking everybody, with Mark Wheeler, as a matter of fact. And last but not least, you can support Crossbody Pro Wrestling and our amazing wrestlers and our staff by heading to prowrestlingtees.com/crossbodyprowrestling, where all of the proceeds of the shirt sales get split between the wrestler and our incredibly hardworking production staff, as well as the graphic artist who designs the shirt for us. And just to let everybody know, we are going to keep those Black Lives Matter shirts up, and every single cent that those shirts ever sell, we're going to give to them on a monthly basis. But to let everybody know, we are going to be donating $260 to www.blacklivesmatter.ca. So I want to thank everybody who's purchased a shirt this month, or this past month, because 100% of the proceeds from all of our shirt sales of Pro Wrestling Tees and from IndependentWrestling.tv have all been pooled together, as well as a nice little generous donation from our ring announcer, Jamie Franchuk, because he's just an amazing human being and wanted to help the cause even more. So everybody, thank you very much for buying those shirts. We're going back to supporting the wrestlers this month, but those BLM shirts will be going to that as long as we have them up for. We can find Holden Albright on all of his socials at Holden Pro on Instagram, Twitter, Tinder, Bumble. Where else you at? Facebook.
Yeah.
Did I hit them all? Is there anything else? Are you on?
I also. Oh God. I also have a podcast called This Is Brendan, and I interview the most random people. I am friendly with so many people that I didn't even realize I'm friends with. So
you can find that on Spotify, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
That is the best way to find it.
And I know that I should have known that because it was Mr. Albright here who recommended me going to Anchor. So I should probably know that he's probably in the same places where all my shit is. So Holden, I want to thank you very much for being a guest for the third time to get this episode done. It's done. It's completed. I might have to make one bleep in there, but that's totally cool. It's so much less than what I had to edit before. Thank you so much for coming here, man. I genuinely love you, man, and I'm so proud of everything that you've done, the man that you've become, everything that you've accomplished, and everything that you're doing for this next generation of guys, because
someone has to.
Not only someone has to, but I'm glad that it's that you've taken the things that me and Chris have really tried to drill into everybody's head, and you took that shit to heart, man. And I really appreciate it. Appreciate you. I appreciate all your hard work that you've done for Crossbody Pro Wrestling. You've put your fucking body on the line. You've literally given your tooth, and we ended up stabbing poor Jimmy in the neck. But I appreciate everything that you do, and I appreciate you as a human being, Pete, my man. And I love you, man. That's all I want to say. I love you, and thank you very much for doing this.
Love you too. Love you too.
And we'll see you guys next episode.